The classroom door didn't open. It unlocked Dot, and in the next 10 seconds, 30 alien students realized they were already dead, because a galactic assassin had just walked in, and the only one smiling was the human. The door didn't slam open, it didn't burst or shatter or trigger alarms. It simply unlocked with a soft, almost polite click that echoed far louder than it should have in the quiet classroom. And in that single, subtle sound, something ancient woke up inside every living creature in the room. Instinct. Raw, evolutionary instinct. The kind that doesn't ask questions. The kind that doesn't wait for confirmation. The kind that whispers only one thing: you are in danger. The lecture stopped. Mid-sentence. 30-2. Students from 32 different worlds froze exactly where they were. A dozen different physiologies, a dozen different evolutionary paths, and yet every single one of them reacted the same way. Muscles locked, breathing slowed, eyes widened. Some species dropped to the floor. Others curled inward. One let out a high-pitched clicking sound that translated roughly to panic, because standing in the doorway was Vel'thrax, tall, thin, unnaturally still. Its body didn't move like something alive. It held itself like a shadow, pretending to have shape. Its form seemed to absorb the light around it, bending the red glow of the classroom displays into something darker, colder. It didn't need to speak. It didn't need to act. Its presence alone was enough. Fear spread through the room like a chemical reaction, fast, unstoppable, feeding on itself. Some students began trembling violently. One collapsed entirely, unconscious before anything had even happened. Another let out a quiet sob, a sound quickly swallowed by the suffocating silence. No alarms triggered, no security systems activated, because this wasn't something technology understood. This was something older, something biological, something designed. Vel'thrax stepped forward and the fear intensified. It fed on it, drew strength from it. The more the room panicked, the more real it became, more solid, more present, more dangerous. A perfect predator, a perfect system, a perfect execution. And sound broke the silence. A soft, almost casual, laughed out, not loud, not hysterical, just amused. Every head turned at once. Back row. Kael Mercer leaned back in his reinforced chair, one leg resting over the other, arms folded behind his head like he was watching a mildly interesting show instead of facing imminent death. His expression wasn't heroic. It wasn't defiant. It was bored out, the only human in the room, a Deathworlder, and he was smiling. That's it, he muttered under his breath, just loud enough to carry. This is what everyone's losing their minds over. Vel'thrax stopped, not out of caution, out of confusion. It filled the room. The fear was still there, strong, overwhelming, intoxicating, except from one source. Kael. There was nothing, no spike, no tremor, no chemical shift, just steady, controlled awareness. That wasn't supposed to happen. Vel'thrax tilted its head slightly, studying him now. Kael met its gaze without hesitation. Inside, his heart was already accelerating. 70 beats per minute, 80, 90. Adrenaline was starting to flood his system, muscles tightening, senses sharpening, cliff sharpening him for something it had been designed to do. For millions of years I'd survive, but his face didn't show any of it. Instead, he exhaled slowly and shook his head. Man! A small chuckle escaped him. You picked the wrong room. A ripple of shock passed through the class. No one spoke to something like that. No one challenged it. Vel'thrax moved again, this time directly toward him. With each step, the air seemed to grow heavier, thicker, pressing down on everything in the room. Several students with one tried to crawl under their desk. Kael didn't move. He just watched, measured, calculated. His thoughts sharpened, focused. It feeds on fear. That's the trick. That's the whole game. He leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees. You're hungry, aren't you? Vel'thrax paused again. The words weren't important. The tone was. There was no fear in it, only curiosity. That was new. That's how you work. Kael continued quietly. You walk in, everyone panics, and suddenly you're the scariest thing in the room. He tilted his head, studying it now the same way it had been studying him. What happens when that stops working? For the first time, Vel'thrax reacted. A pulse of pressure slammed outward, invisible but overwhelming. A wave of pure, distilled terror flooded the room, forcing itself into every nervous system it could reach. Students screamed. Several collapsed instantly. One began convulsing. The room drowned in fear. Kael felt it too. It hit him like ice water poured straight into his brain. His vision tightened for a split second, breath catching, instinct screaming at him to run, to hide, to do anything except stay where he was. And then he laughed again, louder this time. Not because it was funny, because he recognized it, because he'd felt worse. Flash. Gunfire cracking through a ruined street. Flash. The smell of smoke and blood mixing in the air. Flash, a voice screaming for help that came too late. Back in the classroom, Kael straightened slightly, rolling his shoulders, as if shaking off the weight pressing down on him. Yeah. He exhaled slowly. That's cute. Vel'thrax took a step back. Just one. But it was enough, because something had shifted. The predator-prey dynamic was breaking. Kael stood up. Not fast, not aggressive, just deliberate. Every movement controlled, intentional, grounded. Let me explain something to you, he said, voice low but steady. On my world, fear isn't special. He took a step forward. A student gasped. Another whispered something that translated roughly to, don't. Kael ignored them. It's everywhere, he continued. Every day, every place. You grow up with it. You live with it. You get used to it. Another step. Now they were only a few feet apart. Vel'thrax didn't advance, didn't attack, didn't understand. You think you're terrifying, Kael said softly. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. You're just familiar. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Absolute. Kael leaned in slightly. Close enough now that the difference between them wasn't physical anymore. It was psychological. And here's the thing about humans. A pause. We don't get rid of fear. Another step. We use it. Vel'thrax hesitated. That hesitation was everything because now, it wasn't feeding anymore. It was reacting. Kael's voice dropped to a near whisper. You're not the scariest thing I've seen. And that was the moment it broke. Not physically, not violently. Internally, the fear in the room changed. It didn't disappear, but it shifted direction. It wasn't feeding Vel'thrax anymore. It was watching Kael, waiting, learning. And in that shift, Vel'thrax weakened. Its form flickered just slightly, unstable, uncertain. For the first time in its existence, it didn't understand the situation it was in. Kael didn't move, didn't attack, didn't chase. He just stood there, calm, steady, completely unafraid. And that was enough. Vel'thrax stepped back. Then another. Then Dash had vanished. Gone. Not defeated. Not destroyed. But driven away. Because its one advantage no longer worked. The classroom stayed silent for a long moment after. No one moved. No one spoke. They were still trying to process what they had just witnessed. Finally, a voice broke. The quiet, soft, shaken. What are you? Kael glanced around the room, then shrugged, grabbing his bag like class had just ended normally. Human, he said simply. He paused at the door, glancing back once. A faint smirk crossed his face. And trust me, a beat. This wasn't even a bad day. He walked out, leaving behind a room full of aliens, who had just learned something the galaxy had never truly understood before. Humans don't just survive fear, they make it irrelevant. The first thing that changed wasn't the sound. It was the silence. Not the normal kind of quiet hum of a classroom. The soft clicks of translation devices. The shifting of unfamiliar bodies in unfamiliar seats. This silence was heavier, thicker. It pressed down on the room like gravity had suddenly doubled. Then came the footsteps, slow, measured, certain. The door slid open, without resistance. And something stepped inside that didn't belong in a place of learning. No alarms triggered. No automated defenses activated, because the system didn't recognize it as a threat. But every living creature in the room did. Instantly, 30 students froze. Different species, different worlds, different instincts. Same reaction. Submission. Eyes lowered, bodies locked. Breathing shallow. Predator. Predator. Do not move. Do not resist. Do not attract attention. At the front of the room, Instructor Vel'thrax's crystalline form flickered erratically, light scattering through her body in fractured, uneven pulses. Fear translated into biology. The assassin didn't rush. Didn't need to. It walked forward like it already owned the outcome. Tall, lean, precise, every movement controlled to conserve energy, maximize efficiency. Its eyes scanned the room once, calculating, selecting. Target acquired. Lyris. Near the center row, a Quellan telepath. Small and fragile, her translucent form trembling inside her suspended fluid sphere. Her thoughts were already spiraling, broadcasting raw panic into the room like a beacon. Perfect prey. The assassin adjusted direction slightly. Direct path. Minimal obstruction. Mission clarity. Eliminate target. The room held its breath. No one moved. No one moved. No one helped. Because they couldn't. Because something older than logic had taken control. Across the room, one student lifted his head. Slowly, Dante Rook. Human, he didn't stand. He immediately didn't speak. Didn't react like a hero. He just watched. His eyes tracked the assassin's movement. Not with fear, but with focus. Inside his mind, something else activated. Distance. 12 meters. Stride pattern. Consistent. No wasted motion. Center of mass. Slightly forward offensive posture. Possible. Weapon placement. Concealed. Left side. Dante inhaled. Once deep controlled. His heart rate was climbing out to 90, 100. But unlike the others, his body wasn't locking down. It was unlocking fear. Wasn't stopping him. It was sharpening him. The assassin reached the halfway point. 10 meters 9. Lyris let out a small, broken sound. Dante stood. The scrape of his chair against the floor was loud. Too loud it cut through the silence like a blade. Every head snapped toward him. Even the assassin stopped. Slowly, it turned. And for the first time it looked at him. Just really look. Dante didn't look away, didn't lower his gaze, didn't submit. He stepped into the aisle. One stepped on, measured, controlled. The room shifted because something fundamental had just broken. Prey doesn't do that. The assassin tilted its head slightly, analyzing, reassessing. New variable. Dante's thoughts remained steady. It's fast. Faster than me. Stronger too. Doesn't matter. He exhaled through his nose. You're not subtle, he said quietly. The words weren't loud, but they carried. Everything carried in silence. Like this. The assassin didn't respond. It didn't need to. It started moving again. But not toward Lyris anymore. Toward him. Good. That was the plan. Dante took another step forward, closing distance, shifting the battlefield. If it focuses on me, she lives. Simple equation. Simple choice. Behind him, Lyris trembled, her thoughts chaotic, disorganized, but one thing cut through clearly. Why is he doing this? Dante didn't answer. Didn't need to. He already knew. Because on his world, you don't wait for predators to finish their hunt. You interrupt it. The assassin stopped a few meters away, close enough now to see details. Skin like layered armor, muscles coiled beneath the surface, eyes flat, emotionless, not cruel, not angry, just efficient. A tool, built for killing. Step aside, it said. Its voice was calm, certain like the outcome was already decided. Dante almost smiled. Nah, he said. Simple, casual. Wrong response. The assassin moved. No warning, no. Signal. One moment still, next moment in motion. Fast. Too fast. A blur of lethal intent crossing the space between them. But Dante had already moved. Not reacting. Anticipating. He shifted left before the strike even came. Body turning just enough to let the attack pass inches from his chest. Air displaced violently as something sharp cut through where he had been standing. Left side. Weapon confirmed. He didn't look. Didn't hesitate. He stepped in. Closer. Inside. The assassin's optimal range. That was mistake number one for the assassin because it expected distance. Expected fear. Expected retreat. Not this. Dante drove his elbow forward, not aiming for damage, but for disruption. The strike hit the assassin's torso, jarring its balance for a fraction of a second. That was all he needed. He pivoted, moving behind a desk, kicking it forward as a barrier. The desk shattered instantly, but it wasn't meant to hold. It was meant to delay. Half a second. 1 second. Time mattered. Always. The assassin adjusted instantly. Adaptive. Efficient. Dangerous. Good. Dante's breathing stayed steady. In. Out. In. Out. In. Out. His mind pulled from memory. Flash training. Simulations. Flash training simulations. Flasher band combat. Drills. Flash. The moment hesitation got someone hurt. Back in the classroom. He shifted position again. Never staying still. Never. Predictable. The assassin lunged again. Different angle this time. Faster. Sharper. Dante ducked. Rolled. Came up near the wall, grabbing a loose panel and ripping it free. Wires sparked behind it, energy crackling faintly. He didn't think. He acted. He yanked 2 cables loose. The lights flickered. The room dimmed. Not darkness, but disruption. The assassin paused just for a fraction, because now the environment had changed. Dante stepped forward again, closing distance deliberately. "You're good," he admitted quietly. The assassin stilled, listening, double quotes. "Fast, precise, clean, a small breath. But you've got a problem." A pause. "You've never hunted something like me." The assassin attacked again. But this time, Dante didn't evade completely. He stepped into it, taking part of the impact on his shoulder. Pain exploding down his arm, but he used that momentum, grabbing the assassin's limb and redirecting it just enough to throw off its balance. Pain flared, sharp, bright, but his body didn't stop. Pain was just data. He moved through it, around it. With it, he drove forward, slamming into the assassin with everything he had, not to overpower, but to destabilize. The 2 of them crashed into the floor. For a moment everything was chaos. Movement. Force struggled as the assassin tried to recover first. Dante didn't let it. He shifted, locking its arm, applying pressure, not perfect, not clean, but effective. The assassin twisted, almost broke free, almost. Dante adjusted, adapted, improvised. Because that's what humans did. They didn't rely on perfection. They relied on persistence. The struggle lasted seconds, felt like minutes. Finally, the assassin stopped moving. Not dead, but neutralized. Contained. Dante didn't release immediately. He held the position, breathing hard, muscles shaking, adrenaline still flooding his system. Only when he was sure, completely sure, did he let go. He pushed himself up slowly. The room was silent again, but different now. Not fear. Something else. Shocklear stared at him. Eyes wide, unbelieving. "Why?" she whispered. Dante wiped blood from his lip, not even sure when that happened. He glanced at her, shrugged slightly. "Because you needed help." Simple, obvious. To him. To her, it wasn't. The instructor finally moved. Security alarms began triggering. Too late. Always too late. Dante turned away, already walking back toward his seat. Like it was over. Like it was normal. Like it didn't matter. But it did to everyone else. As he sat down, one of the students whispered, voice trembling, "You weren't afraid?" Dante paused, just for a second, then shook his head slightly. "No," he said quietly, a small breath. "I was terrified." The room stilled, but that didn't make sense. He leaned back in his chair again, eyes half-lidded, voice calm. "Difference is..." A pause. "On my world, fear doesn't stop you." Another breath. "It tells you it's time to move." Silence lingered. Heavy. Meaningful. Dante cleft his eyes briefly, letting the adrenaline settle, letting his body come down from the edge. Then, almost as an afterthought, he muttered, "Honestly." A faint, tired smirk touched his lips. This wasn't even a bad day. The first scream didn't come from the body. It came from the mind. No alarms sounded. No doors locked. No weapons appeared. The classroom remained exactly the same, rows of desks, soft ambient lighting, the low hum of station systems running in the background. And yet something was wrong. A student in the front row suddenly gasped, clutching their head, their body trembling violently. Another followed. Then another. Within seconds, the room dissolved into chaos, students collapsing into their seats, some sliding to the floor, others thrashing as if something invisible was tearing them apart. But nothing was touching them. Nothing visible, no attacker, no movement. Just fear, raw, absolute, unfiltered. Instructor Vel'thrax's crystalline form flickered erratically, her internal light patterns fracturing into sharp, chaotic pulses. She tried to speak, but her voice came out distorted, broken by whatever was happening inside her mind. Because this wasn't physical. This was something far worse. The air felt heavy, but not with pressure. Something else. Something intangible. Like the room itself had become a trap. Elena Voss didn't move. She sat still in the middle row, hands resting loosely on her desk, breathing slow, steady, controlled. Around her, panic spread like wildfire, students screaming, begging, whispering to things that weren't there. But Elena closed her eyes and saw it. The illusion, it didn't arrive gently. It didn't build gradually. It hit her all at once, like being dropped into a nightmare, already in progress. Smoke, thick, choking smoke. The smell of burning metal. The sound of distant explosions echoing through empty streets. Her breath caught for half a second. Not because it was new, because it wasn't. Her mind filled in the details. Automatically the broken skyline, the flicker of fire reflecting off shattered glass. The silence that came after everything had already gone wrong. She stood there, in the middle of it, alone, again. A voice whispered behind her. Familiar, too familiar. You couldn't save them. Elena exhaled slowly. Her shoulders relaxed. And then she smiled. A small, quiet smile. You again, she murmured. The illusion shifted. That wasn't supposed to happen. The entity behind it, whatever it was, adjusted, pushing deeper, harder, feeding her mind something sharper, more painful. The smoke thickened. The scene warped. Now there were faces, people she knew, people she had lost, reaching out, accusing. Why didn't you try harder? You left us. You failed. The words echoed, overlapping, layering until they became noise. It's loud, suffocating, overwhelming. Around her. In the real world, her body remained still, but inside she was standing in the center of her worst memory, and she wasn't breaking because she had been here before too. Many times her breathing stayed steady, in, out, in, out, in, out. You're using the wrong strategy, she said softly. The illusion paused, just slightly. Confused, that confusion spread outward, rippling through the psychic field, holding the classroom hostage. Students continued to suffer, some crying, some frozen, but something had changed. A disruption. Elena took a step forward. The ground beneath her cracked slightly. Reality itself struggling to maintain coherence under her defiance. You think this is new? She continued, voice calm, almost conversational. You think this is the worst thing I've seen? The illusion reacted violently now. The environment shifted again, faster, more aggressive. The burning city collapsed into darkness, then a different memory, colder, quieter, quieter. A hospital room, machines beeping, a still body lying on a bed, her hands shaking as she reached out. The moment before acceptance, the moment where hope died. The entity pushed harder, deeper, trying to find the breaking point. But Elena just stood there, eyes open now, watching, processing. You don't get it, she whispered. Her voice carried weight now. Not resistance, authority. This isn't your territory. The illusion faltered, because something impossible was happening. Instead of reacting, she was adapting. Instead of drowning, she was navigating. The hallucination began to fracture, cracks forming along the edges of the scene as Elena's mind pushed back, not violently, not forcefully, but with something far more dangerous. Familiarity. Acceptance. Control. She stepped closer to the hospital. Bed. Closer to the memory, closer to the pain. Her hand reached out. And this time she didn't hesitate, didn't pull back, didn't look away. She touched it, and the illusion shattered, not completely, but enough for her to see beyond it. For a brief moment, she saw the entity, not clearly, but enough. A presence, a consciousness feeding on fear, amplifying it, recycling it, turning the mind against itself. Efficient. Perfect. Until now. Elena tilted her head slightly, studying it. My turn, she said quietly. And everything flipped. The illusion didn't disappear. It reversed. Suddenly the entity was inside her mind, inside her memories, and it wasn't ready. It wasn't prepared. Because human fear wasn't simple. It wasn't cliff. It wasn't contained. It was chaotic. Layered, endless. The burning city returned, but louder, brighter, more intense. The screams weren't distant anymore. They were everywhere. The hospital room, fractured into 1,000 variations of lost voices, overlapped. Memories collided. Pain stacked on pain until it became something else. Entirely. Not weakness. Strength. The entity recoiled for the first time. It felt overwhelmed. Its control slipped. Its structure destabilized. Because it had entered a mind that didn't just survive fear, it had been shaped by it, forged in it, refined by it. Elena stepped forward in the Mindscape. Her presence now solid, unshaken, dominant. You wanted fear, she said, her voice echoing through the collapsing illusion. This is what it actually looks like. The entity tried to withdraw. Too late. The psychic field shattered. Back in the classroom, students gasped, as if surfacing from deep water, but jerked. Eyes snapped open. The invisible pressure vanished instantly. Silence followed. Real silence. This time, Elena opened her eyes slowly. The room came back into walls, students recovering, the instructor stabilizing. Everything normal again, except a WASN, single quotes T, because now everyone was staring at her. A Quellan student whispered, voice trembling. What happened? Elena blinked once, grounding herself. Back in reality, her pulse was steady, her breathing calm, like nothing had happened at all. She leaned back slightly in her chair, shrugged. It tried to scare me, she said simply. A pause. Her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. Bad idea. Across the room, another student spoke, barely audible. What kind of mind survives that? Elena glanced toward the window, where distant stars shimmered in silent indifference. Her voice was quiet, but certain. A human one. The moment the killer entered, the humans started counting. It didn't begin with noise. It began with silence. A strange, unnatural silence that swallowed the classroom whole. 30 students, one instructor, dozens of species, and then dash click, dot the doors, seal dot the lights, flickered once, twice, then shifted into a dim crimson glow. A distorted voice echoed through the room, cold and mechanical. 6 minutes. Panic detonated instantly. Creatures that had faced war, vacuum, and extinction-level events froze in place like prey, sensing an apex predator. Some collapsed, others trembled uncontrollably. A few tried to activate devices, but nothing worked. Systems were dead. Lock. Control. Except one student. Marcus Holy didn't panic. He exhaled slowly and checked his watch. 6 minutes. He repeated under his breath. Not fear a timer. His brain didn't scream. It calculated minute 1. Threat assessment. Marcus stood up, not abruptly, not dramatically, just enough to see better at the front of the room, near the instructor's platform, stood the killer, tall, artificial, not fully biological, a hybrid construct, metal, fused with flesh, eyes glowing faintly, blue dash scanning, learning weapon systems integrated into its limbs, not brute force, precision. This wasn't a berserker, this was a surgical weapon. Marcus noticed the details. Others missed. The way it shifted its weight, the slight delay in its head movement processing, latency, the hum beneath its plating, core regulation. This thing wasn't just here to kill, it was here to execute efficiently. Target unknown. The voice said again, all present are expendable. Students whimper. Marcus nodded slightly. Okay, he whispered. Not personal. That helps. Minute 2. Identify weaknesses. Most beings in the room were still frozen, locked in biological fear responses. Marcus moved, not toward the killer, toward the environment. He scanned the classroom. Desks, lightweight, walls reinforced, but not military-grade seal. Grid. Structure console offline, but not dead. He crouched beside it, running his fingers across the panel. Come on, he muttered. The killer turned slightly toward him. Movement detected. Marcus didn't stop. Yeah, he said quietly. I know. His fingers moved faster. Earthborn instincts kicked in. Nothing ever works when you need it to. Unless you force it to. Minute 3. Manipulate the environment. Marcus ripped open the panel. Sparks snapped. A few students gasped. Unauthorized tampering will result in immediate termination, the killer warned. Marcus smirked faintly. Get in line. He yanked 2 wires free and twisted them together. The room flickered. Air pressure shifted slightly. Oxygen levels dipped, then spiked. The killer paused, just for a fraction of a second, but Marcus saw a reaction delay. Processing recalibration. Good, Marcus whispered. You don't like variables. Minute 4. Psychological warfare. Marcus stood up fully now, facing it. The room watched him like he'd lost his mind. You're not perfect, Marcus said. The killer tilted its head. I am. Optimized. No, Marcus shook his head. You're programmed. Silence. You adapt based on expected behavior, Marcus continued, voice steady. But this, he gestured around. This isn't expected, is it? The killer stepped forward. Slowly. Calculating. Marcus stepped forward to. Closing the distance. Gasps rippled across the room. What are you doing? Someone whispered. Marcus didn't answer. His heart was pounding now. Adrenaline flooding his veins. Fear was there, of course it was. But fear didn't stop him. It sharpened him. You think we're prey? Marcus said. You are the killer, replied. Marcus smiled. Wrong species. Minute 5. Set the trap. Marcus glanced just once at the ceiling. Ventilation. Grid. Timing mattered. Now everything depended on timing. The killer lunged fast. Too fast for most to even see. But Marcus had already moved. Not a way. Forward. He ducked under the first strike, grabbed a nearby desk, and shoved it sideways, not as a shield, but as a distraction. The killer sliced through it instantly, but its vision recalibrated. Again. Tiny delay. That was all Marcus needed. He jumped, grabbing the edge of the ventilation grid. Pain shot through his arms. He ignored it, pulled himself up and kicked the grid loose. It crashed down, right as the killer adjusted position. Momentary obstruction. Marcus dropped back down, rolled, reached the exposed wiring he'd tampered with earlier. Come on, he hissed. The killer turned again. Faster now. Adapting. Learning, but not fast enough. Minute 6. Execution. Marcus slammed the wires together. Hard. The system overloaded for half a second. Everything surged. Gravity fluctuated. Air pressure spiked. Lighting exploded into blinding white. And the killer glitchd. Not stopped. Not destroyed. But disrupted. Just enough. Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed the broken metal frame of the desk and swung it with everything he had. It connected. Right at the joint beneath the killer's neck. A weak point. Not obvious, but there the impact echoed through the room. The killer staggered. Just one step. That was all. Marcus stepped in again. No pause, no fear. He drove the jagged edge forward into the exposed joint. The killer's sunview. CD. Systems flickering wildly. Then silence. It collapsed. Dead. Wait. The room stayed frozen. No one moved. No one breathed. Marcus stood there, chest rising and falling. Heavily, hands shaking now. Adrenaline. Crash hitting hard. He looked down at the broken machine. Then at his watch. 6 minutes. He said quietly. He exhaled. Too slow. The doors unlocked. Lights returned to normal. And the classroom, once frozen in terror, finally moved. But no one looked at the fallen killer. They looked at Marcus, because in 6 minutes, he hadn't just survived. He had hunted. The hunt of fear was the weapon. Until it stopped working. No one saw the killer enter. There was no sound, no warning, no dramatic entrance, just a feeling. A sudden, suffocating pressure that wrapped around the classroom like invisible hands, tightening around every throat at once. 30 students froze mid-breath. Instructor Vel'thrax stopped speaking. Even the ambient hum of the station seemed to fade beneath something deeper, heavier. Fear. Pure. Primal fear. It wasn't emotion. It was force. A field. An invisible wave that crashed into every mind in the room, and dug deep, pulling out instincts older than thought, instincts that screamed one thing: submit, hide, die. Quietly, but reacted instantly as 6-limbed insectoid collapsed onto the floor, twitching. A floating gas-based lifeform shrank inward, its glow dimming to near darkness. Others simply froze, eyes wide, limbs locked, minds shutting down under the unbearable weight. And then someone moved. Rhea Kane blinked once, twice. Her chest rose slowly as she inhaled through the pressure. "Huh," she murmured. She rolled her shoulders like someone waking up from a bad dream. "Okay," she said under her breath. "That's new." At the center of the room, space distorted. Not visibly, but a person PTIBLY. Like heat shimmer bending reality. And then it appeared, tall, thin, wrong. Its body looked like stretched shadows wrapped around something that shouldn't exist. Its limbs were too long, its head too narrow. Its presence didn't just occupy space. It dominated it. "I am hunger," it said softly. Its voice didn't travel through air. It crawled directly into the mind. "I am fear." Rhea tilted her head. "Bit dramatic, don't you think?" The entity paused. For the first time. Something unexpected. "You are unaffected," it observed. Rhea scratched the back of her neck. "Untrue," she said. "I feel it." Her fingers trembled. Slightly. Her heartbeat was faster than normal. Her instincts were screaming warnings. But her body didn't shut down. Her mind didn't break. Because to her, this wasn't new. "Feels like Monday morning back home," she added dryly. The entity shifted. Its form pulsing. Confusion. Impossible. Every species in the room was paralyzed. Their fear fed it, strengthened it, amplified it. But this human stood explain. It demanded. Rhea glanced around. Her classmates motionless, trapped eyes locked in silent terror. She exhaled slowly. "You ever grow up somewhere," she said, "where everything can kill you?" No response. She continued anyway. Where the weather tries to wipe you out. Where the animals are faster, stronger, more venomous. Where even your own kind can be dangerous. Her lips curled slightly. Where fear isn't special. It's normal. The entity pulsed again. Its field intensified. The pressure doubled. Crushing. Suffocating. Students whimpered weakly. Even in paralysis. Rhea's knees bent. Slightly. Her muscles tensed. But she didn't fall. She didn't break. She inhaled deeply, forcing air into her lungs. Yeah, she whispered. That's more like it. The entity recoiled slightly. Not physically, but instinctively. This wasn't how prey reacted. You should submit, it said. You should be consumed. Rhea laughed. Not loudly, not wildly, just a quiet, tired laugh. You don't get it, she said. We've been afraid our whole lives. She stepped forward, one slow step. The floor echoed beneath her boots. We learned to live with it. Another step. The entity's field wavered. Just slightly. We learned to move through it. Another. We learned to use it. The entity lashed out, not physically. Mentally the fear intensified again, sharper now. More focused, targeted. Images flooded Rhea's mind. Darkness, pain, loss, memories. She had buried deep. Her breath hitched. Her body froze for half a second, then she exhaled. Slow. Controlled. Double quotes. Bad choice, she whispered. Her eyes hardened. You think that scares me? Her voice dropped. Cold. You think I haven't seen worse? The entity faltered. It felt something new, something it didn't understand. Resistance wasn't the word. This was something else, something heavier. Rhea looked at the others. They're not weak, she said quietly. They just never had to deal with this. She turned back to the entity. But we did. She stepped closer again. Now, only a few feet away. The pressure should have crushed her completely by now. Instead, it was weakening. How? The entity demanded. Rhea smirked faintly. Because fear only works if you let it control you. She gestured toward the class. They're fighting it the wrong way. Her voice grew louder. Stronger. Double quotes. Stop fighting it. She called out a few. Students twitched. Eyes flickering. Breathe, she said. Don't push it away. Let it pass through you. The entity pulsed violently. No, it snapped. But it was too late. One student took a breath, then another. The pressure didn't disappear, but it changed. It loosened, weakened. Rhea nodded. Yeah. That's it. She looked back at the entity. You built your power on fear, she said. But you never expected something that lives with it. The entity's form began to distort. Unstable. You are wrong, it insisted. But its voice wasn't steady anymore. You are prey. Rhea shook her head. No, she said softly. We're survivors. She stepped forward one final time. Into the heart of its presence. Where the fear was strongest. Where it should have been unbearable. She stood there. Unbroken. Unbowed. And she smiled. The entity recoiled. Its form collapsing inward. Its field collapsing with it. The fear vanished. Not slowly. Instantly. Like a switch being flipped. Students gasped. Collapsed. Cried. Moved. Again. Alive. That entity shrank. Weaker. The entity shrank. Weaker. Fading. Double quotes. What are you? It whispered. Rhea crouched slightly, meeting where its eyes would be. Human, she said. The entity flickered once more and then was gone. Silence filled the room. Real silence. Not the suffocating kind. The kind that comes after survival. Rhea exhaled. Her legs finally gave out and she dropped into a chair. Okay, she muttered. Now I'm tired. Around her, students slowly recovered. Some stared at her in awe. Others in disbelief. Instructor Vel'thrax's crystalline form flickered softly as she regained control. What happened? She asked. One student whispered. She ended it. Another. She wasn't afraid. Rhea shook her head, breathing heavily. No, she said quietly. I was terrified. She looked at her trembling hands, then smiled faintly. I just didn't let it win. Across the room, a voice, soft, shaken, spoke. What kind of species survives that? And laughs. Rhea leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes. The kind, she murmured, that never had a choice. The killer wasn't supposed to escape, and the human wasn't supposed to be there. It started with a glitch. Not loud, not obvious, just a flicker in the lights. So brief most students ignored it. But Noah Vick noticed. Because humans noticed patterns. And when patterns broke, something was wrong. He looked up from his console, eyes narrowing slightly as the classroom lights stabilized. Instructor Halvex continued speaking, unaware. Experiment 47 represents the pinnacle of adaptive bioweapon design. Another flicker, this time longer. The air felt off. Thicker. Heavier. Noah leaned back slowly, scanning the room. 30 students, multiple species, all focused on the lesson, except him. Yeah, he muttered under his breath. Something's not right. The walls hummed faintly. Then clicked. The doors sealed shut. Hard. A mechanical lock, not standard safety protocol. That got everyone's attention. What is happening? One student asked. Instructor Halvex turned toward the door, confusion rippling through his bioluminescent form. This is not part of the demonstration. The lights died. Complete darkness. Then emergency red flooded the room, and something moved. Fast. Too fast. A blur. A scream cut through the air. Wet, sudden, final. The light stabilized and there it was. Standing near the center of the room. Tall, unnatural. Unnatural, shifting its body. Didn't have a fixed shape. Pit flowed like liquid, trying to remember how to be solid. Limbs extended and retracted with disturbing fluidity. Its surface shimmered with biological patterns that kept changing, evolving, watching, learning. Experiment 47. Someone whispered. Instructor Halvex froze. That is impossible. The creature turned its head. Slowly, deliberately. Double quotes no. It said. Its voice layered, multiple tones overlapping. Nothing is impossible. Students panicked instantly. Some tried to run, slamming uselessly against sealed doors. Others collapsed. Fear spread like wildfire. But Noah didn't move. Not yet. He stared at it, studied it. His brain, already working, adaptive, shifting, learning that meant one thing. Prototype, he muttered. The creature's head snapped toward him. You understand? It said. Noah sighed quietly. Yeah, he said. I think I do. He stood up slowly. Bio-engineered. Designed to evolve meat combat. Probably fed real-time data to improve efficiency. The creature tilted its head. Correct. A pause. Then, you are not afraid. Noah shrugged. Oh, I am, he said honestly. Just not surprised. The room trembled slightly as the creature took a step forward. You were not meant to be here, it said. Noah frowned. What? You were not part of the experiment. Everything clicked. The lesson. The lockdown. The sealed exits. This wasn't random. This was controlled. A test. And something had gone wrong. Noah exhaled slowly. Let me guess, he said. They locked you in here with us to see what you'd do. The creature's form rippled. Yes. And you weren't supposed to break containment. No. Noah nodded. Figures. Students stared at him like he'd lost his mind. You're talking to it? Someone whispered. Noah ignored them. His focus was locked, because now he understood the rules. And once you understood the rules, you could break them. Why am I not supposed to be here? Noah asked. The creature studied him longer. This time, you are an anomaly. Noah blinked. Rude. You are unpredictable, it continued. Data incomplete. Outcomes unstable. A slow smile formed on Noah's face. Oh, he whispered. Oh, that's interesting. The creature moved again. Faster now. Closing. Distance. Testing. Noah stepped back, but not in panic. In calculation, you were trained unknown species, he said quickly. Predictable behaviors, fear responses, movement patterns. The creature didn't respond, but it didn't deny it either. And humans, Noah continued. The smile widened slightly. You don't have enough data. The creature lunged. Fast, violent. Precise. Noah barely dodged, rolling across the floor as a bladed limb sliced through the space where his head had been. Students screamed. Noah came up breathing hard. Yeah, he muttered. Definitely not enough data. He grabbed a nearby chair and hurled it, not to hit, but to distract. The creature sliced it apart midair, but its attention shifted. Exactly what Noah wanted. He moved again toward the instructor console. If this is an experiment, he whispered, there's a control system. The creature turned again. Faster now. Learning. Adapting. Interference detected, it said. No kidding, Noah replied. He reached the console and slammed his hand against it. Dead. Locked. Of course it was. Come on, he muttered. Behind Movement. He spun, barely dodging another strike. This time it grazed him. Pain exploded across his shoulder. Warm blood followed. Noah hissed. Okay, he breathed. You're fast. The creature advanced. You will be eliminated. Noah backed up slowly. Mind racing. Adaptive enemy. Controlled environment. Locked systems. Then a thought. A dangerous one. He smiled. You're still part of the system. He said. The creature paused. Explain. You're connected, Noah continued. You adapt using data from the facility. From the experiment framework. The creature said nothing. But it didn't move either. That means, Noah's voice dropped, you can be controlled. Silence. Then, incorrect. Noah shrugged. Let's test that. He turned and instead of running, he slammed his bleeding hand directly onto the console. Blood smeared across the interface. Organic. Contact. Bio-recognition. The system flickered. For a split second. It responded. The creature twitched just slightly. Noah's eyes lit up. Got you. He pressed harder, forcing the system. Override program manual input. He shouted. The console sparked violently. Pain shot through his arm, but he didn't let go. Human override authorization. He yelled. The creature staggered. Connection disrupted. Noah gritted his teeth. Yeah, he whispered. You weren't ready for this, were you? The system surged. Energy pulsed through the room. The creature convulsed its form, destabilizing. You are interfering with experiment parameters. No. Noah snapped. I'm ending it. With one final push, he slammed the console. Hard. Everything went white. Then silence. The doors. Unlocked. Lights. Returned to the creature. Gone, not dead. Not destroyed. Contained. The classroom stood. Frozen. No one spoke. No one moved. Noah staggered. Back, then collapsed into a chair. Breathing hard. Bleeding. Alive. Moments later, security teams burst in. Weapons drawn. Too late. It was already over. They looked at the destroyed room, the shaken students, and the human sitting in the middle of it all. Report. One officer demanded. Noah looked up slowly. Experiment. Failed, he said. Hours later, deep within the station's systems. A log updated. Cold. Clinical. Precise. Experiment 47 status. Terminated. Pause. Then unexpected variable detected. Another pause. Then the final line. Species. Human. Outcome. Uncontrollable. He laughed. Not because it was funny, but because he'd seen worse. The sound didn't belong there. Not in a room filled with frozen bodies, suffocating silence, and the cold presence of something that had already decided who would die. But it came anyway. A low, cracked laugh. Dry. Hollow. Wrong. Every head turned, every eye onto the source. Adrian Cole. The human sat slouched in his chair, one hand covering his face, shoulders shaking slightly as the laugh escaped him again. Seriously? He muttered, voice barely holding together. This is what takes me out. At the front of the room stood the killer. Tall. Silent. Perfect. A being designed for one purpose: ending lives with absolute efficiency. Its body was sleek. Almost elegant. Covered in smooth, reflective plating that absorbed the dim emergency lighting. Its movements were precise, calculated. Each step deliberate. It didn't rush. It didn't need to. Because fear had already done its job. Students were paralyzed. Not metaphorically, literally. Their bodies locked under the crushing weight of its presence. A biological override. Predator dominance. Submission enforced at the neural level. Except for one. Adrian slowly lowered his hand, revealing a tired smile that didn't reach his eyes. You picked a bad day, he said quietly. The killer tilted its head. Studying. Analyzing. Double quotes. You are not responding correctly, it said. Adrian let out another soft laugh. Yeah, I get that a lot. Inside his chest, his heart was pounding hard enough to hurt. His hands trembled slightly. His breathing wasn't steady. Fear was there. Heavy, real, but it wasn't new. And that made all the difference, because Adrian Cole didn't experience fear the way others did. For him, fear wasn't a warning. It was a memory, and memories could be worse. The killer stepped forward. The room seemed to shrink with it. You should be immobilized, it said. Adrian leaned back in his chair, tilting his head as if considering it. Probably, he admitted. His eyes drifted slightly, unfocused for a moment. And just like that, he wasn't in the classroom anymore. He was somewhere else. Somewhere louder, Darker. War. Gunfire echoed through. His mind's smoke filled the air, the smell of burning metal, and something worse clung to everything. He was younger. They were running, breathing hard, someone shouting his name, another voice, screaming, then silence, sudden, brutal. Final. Adrian blinked. The classroom snapped back into place. The killer was closer now, watching, waiting. You are damaged. He'd observed. Adrian smirked faintly. Yeah, he said. That's one way to put it. Another step. Closer. You are unstable. Adrian's smile widened slightly. Now that's just rude. But there was truth in it, because something inside him didn't work the way it should. Fear didn't freeze him. It didn't trigger submission. It didn't shut him down. Broke differently. Twisted. Fractured. Turned into something else. Something unpredictable. The killer moved faster this time. Testing. Closing. Distance. Adrian stood up. Slowly. Casually, as if this wasn't a life or death moment, as if this wasn't the end. You know what your problem is? Adrian asked. The killer didn't answer. It lunged fast. Perfect. Adrian moved, but not cleanly, not precisely. He stumbled, barely dodging the strike. As he tore through the space beside him, a desk shattered. Behind him, Adrian laughed again. Louder this time. You think this scares me? He said, breath uneven. His movements weren't efficient. They weren't calculated. They were messy, erratic, unpredictable because his mind didn't follow clean lines anymore. The killer adjusted, analyzing, adapting, but the data didn't make sense. Patterns didn't form, behavior didn't align. This wasn't prey. This wasn't even a proper threat. This was chaos, and chaos couldn't be predicted. Adrian wiped blood from his lip, where he'd bitten it during the dodge. Let me tell you something, he said. Voice quieter now. You're not the worst thing I've seen. The killer paused. That wasn't expected. You are death, it said. Adrian's eyes darkened for just a second. Then he laughed. Again. A broken sound. You don't even make the top 10. Another flash. Another memory. A face. Someone you couldn't save. Someone who didn't make it out. The guilt hit harder than fear ever could. And for a moment his smile cracked. Pain surfaced. Real, raw. But then it shifted, twisted again, turned into something sharp. Something dangerous. See, that's the difference between you and me, Adrian said. You kill. He stepped forward. Closer, ignoring the danger, ignoring the logic. I survived. The killer moved again, faster, more aggressive. But Adrian didn't retreat. He stepped into it. Wrong move, illogical, but effective. The strike glanced off his shoulder, slicing fabric and skin. Pain flared. He didn't react, didn't slow. He grabbed the killer's arm. Tight. Too close now. Too unpredictable. What are you doing? The killer demanded. Adrian leaned in slightly, grinning. Do you ever try fighting something that doesn't care if it lives? For the first time the killer hesitated. That hesitation, that tiny fraction of a second was enough. Adrian slammed, his head forward. Hard. A desperate, brutal move. Not clean, not efficient. But effective. The killer staggered, just slightly. Adrian didn't stop, didn't think, didn't calculate. He just moved. Wild, relentless. Every strike fueled by something deeper than survival. Not fear, not instinct. Something darker, something broken. The killer tried to adapt, tried to predict, but there was nothing to predict. No pattern, no logic. Just chaos. And chaos won moments later. It ended. The killer collapsed. Not destroyed, but down. Still. The room was silent again, but different this time. Alive. Students slowly regained control, breathing. Shaking. Staring. At him. Adrian stood over the fallen body, chest rising and falling rapidly. Blood dripping from his shoulder, hands trembling. Not from fear, from everything else. The adrenaline faded. The weight returned. The memories crept back in. He closed. His eyes briefly. Exhaled. Then he laughed again. Soft. Broken. You think you're death? He whispered, his voice barely audible. I've lived with it. No one spoke. No one moved. Because in that moment they understood something terrifying. The killer wasn't the most dangerous thing in the room. He was. Out of all species in the galaxy, it chose the worst one. The first mistake was underestimation. The second was not realizing the first mistake was already fatal. It entered the classroom, like it owned the space. Not rushing, not hiding, not even trying to conceal itself because it didn't need to. It had studied this species. Humans, weak, emotional, physically inferior, highly reactive, perfect prey. That's what the data said. And data, in its experience, was never wrong. The moment it stepped into the room, the atmosphere changed. Not dramatically, subtly, like a pressure drop before a storm. Students froze. Some collapsed instantly under the fear field. Others trembled, locked in place, by instinct, older than thought. The predator smiled internally. Easy. Easy. And a voice. Wow. It paused. The voice wasn't fear, wasn't shock. It was amused. At the back of the room, a human leaned back in his chair like this was a boring lecture, instead of an extinction event. JAX Renner. Feet on the desk, arms crossed, smirking. Double quotes. Okay, Jock said. I was expecting something cooler. Silence. Crack. The predator tilted its head. You are not afraid, it observed. JAX shrugged. Should I be? That wasn't in the profile. Humans froze. Humans panicked. Humans begged. This one didn't even stand up. The predator stepped forward. I am your end. Jocks nodded slowly. Yeah, I get that a lot too. A few students made small, desperate noises. Not laughter. Not relief. Confusion. Because this human wasn't acting like a hero. He wasn't tense. Wasn't calculating. Wasn't even trying to look brave. He just looked annoyed, like someone interrupted his lunch break. The predator activated its fear field again. Stronger, more focused. The room bent under it. Students dropped further into paralysis. But Jock tilted his head. Is that supposed to do something? He asked. The predator hesitated. Impossible. It intensified the field. Maximum output. Biological collapse threshold. And still Jocks blinked. Honestly, he said, I've had worse anxiety. From cafeteria food. A pause. Then a grin. Do you guys even try anymore? The predator stepped closer, analyzing rapidly. Now, something was wrong. Humans did not resist like this. Humans broke. Humans submitted. This one was mocking it. Your species is inferior, it stated. JX laughed. Not nervous, not forced, genuine. Double quotes. Oh, buddy, he said. You picked the wrong insult. He stood up, finally, slowly, stretching his arms like he was waking up. And that was when things shifted. Not physically, but strategically. Because Jocks wasn't reacting like prey. He was reacting like a problem solver. He glanced around the room, not at the predator, at the environment. Doors sealed. Lights flickering. Furniture. Ceiling panels. Emergency systems. He nodded. Yeah, he muttered. Okay, I see what's going on. The predator advanced. You cannot escape. Jocks pointed at it lazily. I'm not escaping a beat. I'm just figuring out how annoying this is going to be. That was the second mistake. Underestimating unpredictability. JAX walked not away from it but sideways, circling like he was inspecting it. You're pretty confident for something standing in a room full of people who survived evolution by punching things until they stopped moving, Jocks said casually. The predator struck. Fast, sharp. Deadly. JAX moved at the last second barely, but not in panic. In rhythm. Like he saw it coming. Half a moment before it happened, he stumbled back, whistled. Double quotes. Okay, that's kinda fast. Then smiled, but not fast enough. Now the room changed. Not because of fear, because of momentum. JAX was moving, and humans moving meant everything else became collateral. He grabbed a chair, mid-spin, and threw it not at the predator, but at a wall panel. It shattered. Sparks flew. The predator turned slightly. Tracking. Adjusting. JAX clapped. Nice. You noticed? He grabbed another object. A lab instrument. Tossed it another. Distraction. Another angle. The predator recalculated. Fast, but not faster than chaos. You are attempting resistance, it said. JX nodded. Yep. Another pause. Also improvisation. Also sarcasm. Also mild curiosity about how much damage I can do before I get bored. He ducked another strike. Roll. Came up laughing. You know what your problem is? He asked. The predator didn't answer Jocks. Did anyway you think humans are one thing? He kicked a table sideways, forcing the predator to adjust. But we're not. He moved again. Closer. Too close. You think we panic, he said. He ducked under a strike. You think we freeze. He grabbed the edge of a console, and some of us do. He yanked it open. Sparks, warning signals. But the rest of us, he looked directly at it. We adapt. The predator struck again. Harder now. Frustration creeping in. Jox barely dodged, shoulder grazing a blade. He hissed. Okay, he muttered. That one actually hurt. Then grinned again. Respect. The Clifford paused. Just slightly. That hesitation again. Jox noticed. Of course he did. That's the thing, he said. You're learning. He tapped his temple. So am I. He slammed the console. Systems flickered. Emergency protocols triggered. Gravity adjusted slightly. Lights stuttered. The predator staggered just for a moment. And that was enough. Jack's mood. Not like prey. Like a decision already made. He grabbed a fallen support rod and swung it not to kill, but to disrupt balance. The predator stumbled. Jax stepped in close. Now here's your real problem, he said softly. You came here thinking we were easy. He struck not elegantly, not perfectly, but effectively. The predator reeled. Jox backed off immediately, breathing hard now, still smiling. You ever hear the phrase wrong neighborhood? He asked. The predator stabilized, but something had changed. Its confidence cracked. Jax tilted his head. Yeah, he said. You're in it. The predator hesitated again. And in that hesitation humans won. Not because they were stronger. Not because they were faster. But because they refused to fit inside the box the galaxy had built for them. Jox exhaled. Next time, he said, wiping his hand on his sleeve. Pick an easiest species. Behind him, the room was still frozen. But the predator for the first time was the one calculating survival.